Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you very much for joining me here today. This is your one-stop shop for cryptocurrency analysis, among many other things. The channel is growing. Thank you so much to my contributors and my community for helping me out this far. Love you all very much. We've come a long ways, and we're going to continue on. Anyways, this is not financial advice, right? This is for educational purposes only. Do your own research. We're going to take a look here today at Bitcoin Cash, which is BCHA, and it's really just kind of blowing up right now, doing very well, recovering fantastically. And my community asked me to cover this, so thank you all again so much for your constant contribution and requests, keeping this channel alive. Fantastic, all of you. Thank you. Before we move on, just before we take a look, I want you to know I do have a Signal group through my Patreon account. Link in the description below. That is my premium Patreon account, providing you with 3 to 5 signals per week for entry points, best practice, and essentially just making sure to take the legwork out of this. So all the stuff we're going to look at here today, you don't necessarily have to do this every single day to identify good entry points. All right, I digress. Without further ado, let's just go ahead and check it out. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look at Bitcoin Cash, which is BCHA. And before we do, if you're new to the channel, we always look at Bitcoin and Ethereum first, just kind of get a baseline of the market so you know full well you're making an informed decision when you take entry. So let's take a look at that first. So good old Bitcoin. Let's take a look, see what's going on here. And I'll have to redraw the channels that we're in right now, but you can kind of see it's pretty obvious what's going on here. But with Bitcoin here, we're kind of looking at the price action being right at what, 34,400. All right, and let's go back down to the 4-hour chart, get a perspective here on what's going on. Let me go ahead and make these lines here for us. And 42,000 was essentially the major resistance, and we've also got, what is it, 30,000 as the major support. And let's go ahead and put that there. And of course, we've got a few others as well. There is a support level right at around 31,000, and of course, a resistance at approximately 41,000. So we've got this range between 30 and 42 with some minor support and resistance levels. A few others along the way, of course, but that's generally what's going on there with Bitcoin. And if we take a look at these moving averages, we are testing the 50-day moving average right now as we speak. So we'll see what happens if it can break above and stay above, be very helpful, because the 50-day moving average has proven to be a very impactful moving average over the course of Bitcoin's lifespan, right? So we just got to pay attention to that. If we can get above that, we'll be looking good. And then our next milestone is to break above roughly what, 36,000, whereas the 200,000 where the 200-day moving average is hovering. Okay. So yeah, that's kind of what we're looking at there for the big picture on Bitcoin. Let's take a quick look at the Ichimoku cloud on the 1-hour chart just to quickly identify what's going on here. And we can see we're above the cloud, and we are looking fairly well here. So all things looking good for the moment. We'll see what happens here in the near future, but we're above the cloud, and that's a very, very good sign. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and look at Ethereum. We'll just go ahead and take a look here as well, above the cloud on the 1-hour chart as well. Again, that's the Ichimoku cloud. And there's a lot of other indicators involved with the cloud, but I'm just kind of keeping it simple and showing you that that is kind of a good sign right now. If we can stay above, then that is essentially a buy signal. Anything over the cloud is essentially a buy signal. Anything below is a sell signal. Okay. But with Ethereum, let's go ahead and get back over the 4-hour chart. We'll take a look at the moving averages. And as you can see here, pretty much about the same as Bitcoin in a lot of ways, whereas the price action has been kind of trending downwards. Bitcoin's doing actually better than Ethereum right now, which is odd because usually Ethereum was like the go-to for everyone when Bitcoin did poorly. So unfortunately, Ethereum is kind of struggling. It's kind of going sideways and down. There's a good chance, though, if Bitcoin can recover to, what, 41, 42,000, break above 42, we'll be in very, very good shape. Because, again, we still have a bull run left in the in the tank, right? So I think that we'll see Ethereum come up as well. Will we get back up to 4,000 for Ethereum? It's hard to say. I would say that maybe 3,000 is probably more realistic, but we'll shoot for 2,900 first because that's a major resistance level that was tested probably about 10, 11 times until it fell off. All right. Furthermore, we do have a support level roughly at about 1,700. So rough estimate 17. Let's go ahead and mark that guy here. Keep that for later. I'm going to replace this guy here with a thicker line, so we have that for later. So again, right around 2,900. Keep that guy there for later. All right. So that is the state of the union for Ethereum. All in all, pretty good, but honestly not great compared to what we're used to. Okay. All right, moving on to Bitcoin Cash. All right, let's take a look here. 1-day chart. First things first. We are using Binance for this, of course, just so keep that in mind. That's why you see BUSD, but it's effectively the same thing as USD. And what we're looking at is the movement here. So look at that big candles here in the last 24 to 48 hours. So we're looking pretty good. Price is above. You see how it broke above today, the 50-day moving average, and also staying above the 200. Now the 200 is kind of new on this chart. It's understandable. There's really not a lot of data to derive here from that, but I can tell you though that we're above both moving averages currently. So honestly, we're looking pretty good all in all for the price action. The 50 is probably the more impactful one here as far as understanding where we're at, because you can see how it got rejected yesterday, and today it bounced above and is currently holding above. Granted, we still got a few more hours left in the trading day. It could very well recede and come back down, but this is all in all a pretty good sign so far. It does appear to be having pretty good momentum. If we look at the RSI is pretty low, all things considered, especially considering how much movement we had in the last 24 to 48 hours. So we're at about 57, 58, a lot of room for growth here. And as we can see, the MACD did kind of swing upwards here. Okay, we had that little retracement, but it came back up and we're looking very good. So it's all in all pretty good signs here on the 1-day chart. Okay, so looking at the 4-hour chart now, we can see the price is above both moving averages, also a very good sign. Isn't it interesting how the price blew through that moving average? Now it is kind of odd, of course, it doesn't typically have that much movement in one 4-hour time frame, but you will notice that anytime a moving average, the 50 and the 200, especially when they're together like that, it either breaks really hard and really fast, or it rejects really hard and really fast. Okay, so it came up and it pushed right through, powered through, so the bulls are in control. And it does look like even though we're going sideways right now, we should expect to see some type of momentum continue, again, as long as Bitcoin can kind of stay put. And by the way, why don't we take a look at the 1-day chart again, just to clarify, because I like to look at the time frames that Bitcoin did poorly and kind of compare that with this here, right? There's probably going to be some similarities, of course, but let's take a look. So let's take a look at the 17th of April. That's like the first baseline. It tells us roughly where we're at, because that was the first major sell-off. So Bitcoin Cash was doing very well up until that point. Here's the first major sell-off. So definitely following the same suit as Bitcoin here. And we look at the 25th, there should be a ramp up on the 25th. Yes, that's right here. And then we got the wonderful Elon candle down here on the 8th through the 12th. There's basically a couple of different waves there. And then, of course, the largest one is on the 18th, 19th, which is right here. So it's good to know this because every single sell-off on Bitcoin has impacted Bitcoin Cash. I mean, big surprise, of course, right? I think almost all the markets did that. But you got to understand that not all coins are that influenced by it. Right? Some of them can bounce back. A lot of them recover quickly after the first sell-off, but the second time they get hit pretty hard. But honestly, this China candle really hit things hardest for most. And ever since then, we've been seeing it go sideways. So almost the same exact channel as we saw Bitcoin, but here's the difference. The Bitcoin Cash is ramping up and breaking its previous resistance. If you kind of see this here, we've got a previous resistance roughly at about $22. Okay, so we're above that as well. And coincidentally, that's right where these moving averages are at, right? So look, moving averages are right about 19. On the 1-day chart, they're closer to about 22. So all in all, we're looking pretty good here. Looks like we are above support and holding support, right? Because again, the more times you test a resistance level, the more likely it's going to be broken. So like with Ethereum, for example, it hit it 10 times. The next time it tests, it's going to blast through it. So that's just, again, my thoughts, my considerations, but I can tell you that generally speaking, anytime, you kick a door enough times, it's going to break through, right? Obviously, some doors are never going to be broken, but I think you get the reference here. All right, so enough about that. Let's move on to the 1 hour. Let's take a quick look at Ishimoku and see what's going on here. Obviously, we're above the cloud. And, big picture, in case you're unfamiliar, anytime the price breaks above the cloud, it's considered a buy signal. And furthermore, when it's below, it's considered a sell signal. So hypothetically, had you been tracking this a while ago, it would have been a good time to short back here on June 20th. So that was roughly 4 days ago, right? So good shorting signal there. Okay, so that's kind of the general consensus for how the Ishimoku clouds works. There's a lot more to it, trust me on this, but the best time frame, just so you know, is the 1 hour chart. I got this question recently, should I use it on the 15? It's not as effective, I feel, personally. A lot of people use this on other time frames, of course, but I've seen the most benefit, the most reliability on the 1 hour chart. Just like the moving averages, they work the best on the 4 hour chart. So I'm a 4 hour guy, that's my thing. But I can tell you the 1 hour chart is not necessarily a chart that I commonly use, but for Ichimoku, I definitely use this. Okay. So just something to consider. So we'll just go ahead and leave that marking up there, and we'll go ahead and transition over to the 15, kind of see where that puts us. And that's right where the cloud was indicating a buy signal right there, right? So see these clouds here, these aren't really indicating much of a buy signal. So that's why I use a 1 hour chart. All right, so we'll just turn that guy off there, kind of take a look here. So on the 15, we are working into this channel. We can see the price action is kind of going sideways right now. Makes sense considering how hard it ramped up. I mean, look at this increase. What is that? That was an increase of approximately, at its highest point, about 60% in a, that's about an hour and 15 minutes. That's pretty solid. That's a pretty significant increase. So kudos to you or whomever invested down around $16 for Bitcoin Cash. So it's a really good investment there. Of course, now the question is how much higher is it going to go, right? Well, let's take a look at big picture really quick, and we'll come back to the 15. Look at its average price, right? So in this channel here, it's kind of going sideways, and then it took off on the 22nd of March. Now, what was Bitcoin doing on the 22nd of March? 22nd of March, Bitcoin was right about here. So it's interesting, Bitcoin was really not doing a whole heck of a lot. So my guess here is that, outside of technical data alone, there was a strong fundamental catalyst that drove the price up on the 22nd for Bitcoin Cash. Likely it was an introduction to another, when coins are introduced to other actual exchanges, you'll see that happen. So there's a good chance that happened. There's a possibility this was another scenario like that. But the bottom line here is that the price action stayed above here and did really well up until we had this China candle. So if you can tell, it survived a large majority of Bitcoin sell-off, because if you remember on the 17th of April, Bitcoin sold off 15% in one day. Now, granted, this lost a decent percent as well, but it still recovered and stayed in this range, whereas Bitcoin went sideways and down. So to me, when I see this kind of price action during that tumultuous period, that tells me that we're in pretty good shape to see the average true range be closer to 27 to 40, right in that area. Whereas the price being currently around 22, 23, I still feel like there's some room for growth. Okay. Now we're also above the support level here, so it's a very good sign as well. So all these signs here are essentially leading to Rome, right? I think that's the terrible reference perhaps, but the whole point of the matter is that I think we're looking fairly good, and I do think there's potential for this to increase. So my prediction, if you were to have one, is that if Bitcoin can retain its value of just say 34 to 40,000, keeps going sideways and somehow continues to progress upwards with higher highs and higher lows, this will take off, and we're going to see it probably jump up to closer to $40 at one point eventually within the next couple of weeks. Again, this is all contingent on Bitcoin doing well. Most all altcoins are reliant on Bitcoin right now. This one's no exception, but it has done fairly well when Bitcoin was doing poorly, even though it is impacted by the Bitcoin sell-off. All right, so let's just quickly look at the 15, and we'll go ahead and pull up my EMA VWAP notification here. And this is a good sign, because this indicator tells me when I have signals of confirmation. Now everyone has different confirmation, right? But for me, it's getting 2 solid 15-minute green bars in an order above the EMA and VWAP line. So if you're new to the channel, this red line is the EMA line. When the price is above, it's considered bullish. When it's below, it's considered bearish. Now it's in a state of consolidation right now, so who really knows what's happening? So when it goes sideways, it's hard to identify who's in control, right? Because the bulls and bears are fighting it out. However, you got this VWAP line too, which is this blue line, the additional blue line here outside the support. And that is essentially a indication of a continuous support and resistance level, right? Because it takes the 24-hour volume and expresses it as a price. So right now, the price should be about 23.50, whereas the price is just slightly higher at 24.25. That being said, if we zoom in a little bit closer and we look at this price action here, sorry, that's kind of funky. Right here, if you see these 2 yellow carrots here, or 2 up arrows essentially, that's confirmation. That's what my notification does. This is available through my Patreon account as well, if you'd like to consider that, through my premium Patreon account. I provide this indicator to you as a subscriber. Now, this tells us basically, again, it's not a foolproof plan, but it does tell us that we have confirmation above EMA and VWAP, and the likelihood of it continuing upwards is fairly high. It's not, again, perfect, but it definitely works if you look at other factors. So let's look at RSI. RSI is under 70, so check number one, we're in good shape there. Right? Price is above EMA, yep, price is also above VWAP. So that basically tells us that we have confirmation the price is heading upwards. Now what we need to wait is for a secondary confirmation too, because if the price comes back down and bounces off EMA, that tells us the bulls are in control. So that's what we're looking for. That's what we want. We don't have that full confirmation yet, so if you were to take a position right now, I would consider taking a smaller position than you normally would, maybe 25 to 30%, and then add to your position after you get that bounce off the EMA. Okay? Because again, the EMA line, the exponential moving average, works with the price. So as you can see right here, say for example you had invested right back here, which would be awesome, of course. You know, say you bought in right as soon as the price came over the cloud. Comes up here, and when it comes down, you see how it comes down, it passes the VWAP. That's warning number one, right? So the price comes down and bounces off of VWAP, you usually get that support, right? It's like, okay, great, we're still in control. Well, unfortunately, we lost control right here. Okay, and then furthermore, the price came down and tested the EMA, continued sideways, but now we lost it, right? So that's the indication telling you that you want to go ahead and trim or sell your position had you been going, just say, long in this time frame. Okay. But the inverse also applies too, because obviously when the price goes below, it's considered bearish, and you want to be careful not to take entry. Now, the great thing about this is this support level that we've already identified at $22 and, I don't know, 10 cents is essentially telling us that that's working as a support level, right? Because it previously was working as a resistance. That's why we marked it. See, it's worked as a resistance, but now it's a support. And coincidentally, look at that bad boy. Look at that go. This is the confirmation you want to have, right? So look at these indicators, look at that, that's what you want, all right? So to me, I would say consider taking entry. This is definitely, you know, a good consideration, but we want to make sure we have that full-on confirmation, so potentially wait for the price to bounce off the EMA and get that you know, secondary momentum, knowing that you're actually investing in something that's going to go up. But again, I think the value of this coin is much higher than it should be, or correction, it should be much higher than it is, okay? Because it's definitely more valuable. But again, keep in mind the price just increased, what, 60% in the last 48 hours. So it has to likely go sideways for a little bit longer before we see another increase. But if we see an increase now, that'd be fantastic. Get in while you can. So I hope you found this beneficial. If you do, like and subscribe, feel free to consider joining my premium Patreon account for signals like these, where I provide you with signals weekly, 3 to 5 signals per week, essentially, that help you find good entry points. Because I have more time to look at this than the average person. So my goal is to help make you more profitable, my community members. So thank you again for recommending I do this, because it's obviously turning out to be a very great benefit. I've had some fantastic feedback so far. So thank you again for everything you all do for me. I really appreciate you all very, very much. We'll look forward to seeing the next video. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.